the moderator and the person who's put this together, Megan Jansen, who's been a member of Women's Giving Circle for almost 5 years, and she has brought so much energy and enthusiasm. We're delighted to have her as part of our leadership team. Megan was not born in Gainesville, but she's been raised in Gainesville, and she has been here, returned back with her family. She's the mother of 3 girls and very busy, but she's put together a wonderful workshop for you today to introduce you to the Women's Giving Circle. And thanks very much. The only thing I'm going to ask everybody before I say goodbye is if you could please, everybody mute yourself. That would be great. And thank you so much. And thank you for being here with us today. And Megan, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie has to go off to another Zoom meeting because that's sort of what we do these days. So thank you, Jackie, for being on the call. Jackie's the chair of the Women's Giving Circle leadership team. And it's a lot of fun sort of serving in that capacity with her. So awesome, thanks. And then Leslie is on the call also. She is in charge of programs at the Community Foundation, and she's going to share her screen with you all, including this PowerPoint that we'll go through. So again, my name is Megan Jansen, and the intent this morning is to share a bit about the Women's Giving Circle, sort of the history, accomplishments, how we've pivoted and done things this year in this sort of crazy 2020, and then what it would look like to be a donor, to join with the current women in the Women's Giving Circle to broaden and grow our impact. So if you've never heard of Women's Giving Circle, great. If you're already a member and maybe have questions, perfect. I think there's opportunity for everyone to learn a little bit here and then time at the end for some questions. So we will cover sort of what is the Community Foundation, since the Women's Giving Circle is housed within and overseen by the Community Foundation. Again, talk about what the Women's Giving Circle is, the impact that this circle has made, and then how to become a donor. So we can go on to the next things. So what is the Community Foundation? Community Foundation is a public nonprofit organization. It provides the overarching support to help individual or small groups of donors create funds. So they could be endowments for philanthropic purposes. So they accept the donations, manage the donations, and then will follow through with whatever the individual donor or group of donors wants that money to do. So they're a steward of permanent community resources. So our community foundation here in Gainesville was founded in 1998. It was built in that same purpose. There were community foundations growing up across the country, raising lots of money, growing money that was then fed back into the individual communities. And local community members in Gainesville saw that and wanted to bring that model here. So that was able to happen in 1998 with the purpose to build permanent capital to support local programming here. The mission then, still is today, is to promote and sustain philanthropy among the communities of North Central Florida. So it is the Community Foundation of North Central Florida is the official name. And then here are some milestones through the years. And currently, I think the current numbers are really impressive. The foundation has granted more than $22 million in support to charitable organizations and has amassed more than 120 funds with $36 million in assets and planned gifts. So this chart gets us through 2017, and it's really grown since then and continues to do so every year. So the types of funds, the most common fund is a donor advised fund, where the donor can ask for distribution at any time to qualifying charitable organizations, sort of that fall within their scope, however the fund was set up. But a community foundation can create and oversee any of these types of funds. So the Community Foundation has a really amazing staff that does a lot. Barzella Papa is the president and CEO. Leslie Banis is on the call with us today, the director of programs. And if you start attending webinars and things like this, you'll get to see them both a lot. David Roundtree is in a grant-funded position that's newer to the staff. He's the director of diversity and inclusion outreach, and they've been doing some really robust programming around that with local nonprofits and community leaders. And then Nancy Parks is the administrative and financial support person who sort of holds it all together for them. So within the Community Foundation, they are managing and advising those currently 120 charitable funds, but they've also created unique and original programming. So the Philanthropy Hub is new. The Center for Nonprofit Excellence does a lot of training and outreach to nonprofits in Gainesville. The Amazing Give is sort of an annual day of giving, and that was held, it used to be in the spring, it was just held in August. And then the Women's Giving Circle is, again, sort of under the umbrella of the Community Foundation. They provide the overarching support, facilitation, administration of the fund, you know, including things from mailing donor packets, helping plan events like today. So they're a really incredible asset, and I think give us sort of the roots in the foundation that have let the Giving Circle be successful for so many years. So from there, we'll sort of lean into more specifically what the Women's Giving Circle is. So in 2006, a group of women that were currently on the Community Foundation board wanted to bring a Women's Giving Circle here to our community. They had seen, heard about, visited other circles in other communities that were made up differently, not all women's giving circles, but a way for money to be pooled together, harnessing sort of the power of collective giving, and then returned during that same year back into the community to make a greater impact than individuals on their own could do. So nationwide at that time, there were 400 documented giving circles, and they had granted over $65 million. So they wanted to bring that power here. So 85 women came together. They each donated some money to grant funds to support organizations, programs, and initiatives that address the needs of local women and girls to build a community of female philanthropists here. So then in 2007, they were able to grant to sort of push back out their first series of grants into the community. So again, over 80 women joined together and made these initial grants during that 2007 grant cycle, putting over $60,000 of grants into our community. So then we'll fast forward from 2007, that first grant cycle, to 2019, and we had 113 donors and made some really impactful grants. So starting, I believe it was in about 2013, the Women's Giving Circle went to sort of a plan where there was one impact grant that was given out for $50,000 to really make a big difference in our community. And then depending on the other grants that came in for various amounts, you can see here the Child Advocacy Center asked for $875 that was funded. Other organizations, you know, $4,600, $5,000. So then after the $50,000 impact grant was distributed, there was other remaining money based on how many donors we had, how much money we had to give, and then so smaller grants were given out. So in 2019, Girls Place received the $50,000 grant, which was able to provide them the last bit of money they needed to complete a big capital building project, so that they can then have more girls come. They have a place to do their homework, they have a place for technology, and so it allowed them to start construction, which we felt like was a really impactful thing to help them do. So in 2020, no surprise, things are looking a little different. They looked a little different. So we started the year, January, sort of along our normal course. We're following our normal calendar that I'll show later. And then as the grants committee was sort of ramping up, combing through, going through all of the amazing grant applications that they had received, they realized as things started shutting down here locally in March that really very, very quickly, the needs of nonprofits in Gainesville were changing. And so I think very astutely, the Community Foundation then started reaching back out to their community partners, to nonprofits, to see, is this need that you applied for in January, you were probably thinking about all fall, applied for in January, is that the same critical need that you have today? And we started hearing that, no, everything's changing. We have different needs. What can we do? And so we had planned for a $50,000 impact grant and then $30,000 in additional smaller grants. But based on feedback from local nonprofits, decided on a rolling basis to accept grant applications, smaller, shorter. We knew that nonprofits were stretched really, really thin. So we allowed them to, on a rolling basis, apply for funding for projects and programs that would immediately impact women and girls in our community. It didn't have to be COVID related, it could, some were, but to fill immediate needs. And the grants committee really, really worked incredibly hard all spring throughout the summer to go through, spend a lot of time asking questions, looking at these nonprofits, figuring out what they needed and what we could provide to them. And so far, these organizations here have been granted grants this year from the 2020 Women's Giving Circle
Okay.
month.
Yep.
You want to add anything to that, Leslie? Because I know you were involved with that. You probably muted yourself. So I think this was nice. This showed that we were able to really respond in a timely way. The plan for 2021 is to return to sort of the more original intent of one large impact grant and then some smaller grants in amounts that local nonprofits choose. So another thing that was really exciting about this year was that we surpassed $1 million in money granted out to the community. And you can see the breakdown of that $1,019,159 from organizations that we've supported the most through the years, all the way on down. You can see these are names that you're certainly familiar with. There's the Acorn Clinic, Grace Girls Place, the Swag was on there. They received an impact grant, was it in 2016, to some small organizations to help start and build up their programming. Dream on Purpose was one of the projects and programs that we supported over the summer, just this past summer. So this was something that was really fun to track. We knew last year we were getting close, and that this year would probably be the year to surpass $1 million, and we did. So this sort of is more of the storytelling of that money. On the previous slides, you know, it's easy to say like, oh, we gave $5,000 here and, you know, $2,600 there. But what does that mean? And so there are a lot of stories like this, and it's really, really fun, interesting, exciting to hear back from these nonprofits about how the money impacted them and impacted women and girls in our community. So 35 girls at PACE were provided dental treatment. More than 150 women received tuition and book assistance to return back to the workforce through displaced homemakers. More than 1,600 girls were provided the opportunity to participate in Girl Scouts. 8 middle school girls were awarded Women's Giving Circle scholarships through the Take Stock in Children program through the Education Foundation. So again, there are a lot of really incredible stories like this, and we'll get to hear from one of our partners today. So to segue into there, we have Dr. Teresa Beachy. She's the Executive Director of Peaceful Paths, and they have been a recipient of some Women's Giving Circle grants throughout the years. And so this is a really nice opportunity for you all to hear directly from her that the impact of this collective giving can have. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Teresa Beachy.
Thanks, Megan. It's great to be able to talk to you all about the collective giving that the Women's Giving Circle has done and the impact that it does have on the various programs in the community that are aimed at really supporting women and girls and making sure that we are creating a stronger environment for them to thrive right here in the Gainesville area. Peaceful Paths provides a wide range of free and confidential services to adult and child survivors of domestic violence. We serve Alachua, Bradford, and Union counties. We've been around since 1974, and the Women's Giving Circle has been an incredible local community partner that's been able to help us do some really unique things. We were the first recipient of the large capital grant. I believe that's right, Leslie. And we were able to match that to our Economic Empowerment Financial Literacy Program. And that program is really aimed at ensuring that survivors understand how money can work for them. So many times survivors come in and tell us that financial abuse was really the thing that kept them the most trapped in their relationship. Not having access to credit, not having access to money that even they had been earning, really made them feel as though they did not have options. So that economic empowerment and financial literacy program does a couple of different things. It puts them through a 16-week budgeting and financial literacy course that really teaches them how money works, all the different aspects from banking and taxes to credit, and gets them poised to be able to be more financially self-sufficient. And then the second part of that, of course, is that we have to have some funding to help them get there. So the program actually operates two different streams of financial assistance. The first is micro lending, and that's one of the things that the big capital grant helped us with, was to see that micro lending project. And that allows us to support women by giving them a small loan for an immediate need. So maybe it's that they have completed all of their CNA training, but they need all of the uniforms, or they need to put tires on their car, or they need to be able to buy some additional equipment to help them in that job. So we can provide them a small loan up to $1,000 that then they can repay over time. And the neat thing is we became a credit reporting agency, so that as they're paying that, they're meeting the immediate need, but they're also building their own credit. And that's a huge issue, because so many times they come to us and find out when we run a credit report for them, which we can of course do for free, that their batterer has taken out loans that they didn't know about, or that they failed to pay things that were in their name, and so now it's a ding on their credit. So being able to build that up while simultaneously meeting an immediate need is a huge thing. And then that becomes a self-sustaining fund, because as they pay it back, we put it back into that fund for other women then to receive loans from. The other part of the micro lending and financial assistance is matched IDA savings accounts. And I cannot tell you how much of an impact IDA savings has for survivors when they're looking toward the future and how they can make a change for themselves and their children in financial independence. What we do is, through that financial literacy course, one of the things we talk a lot about is savings, and looking at your budget and seeing where the money kind of fritters away in a way that you weren't anticipating, and helping them create habits and budgets that can contribute to a savings account. And during that time frame, if they can save up to $750, then we can match that 2 to 1, so that they can leave the program with a little, around $2,200. That makes a huge difference in terms of deposits on an apartment, or putting a down payment on a car, going towards your education. Really, that is a very flexible pot of money that is a federally designated program, so that it doesn't count towards assets for things like SNAP or other mainstream benefit programs that they're getting. And it allows them to have some flexibility moving forward. So the Women's Giving Circle has supported both of those, along with a bunch of other smaller initiatives throughout the years in our violence prevention programs, in our shelter. And it's just really made a huge difference in our organization's ability not only to say to survivors, look, we've got this project and we can be innovative with how we fund it, but it also shows to the larger state and federal funders that we've got local support. And that makes a huge difference when you're going in on competitive grants, when they see that there are local community members who see you every day, know you, drive by your facilities, and want to contribute to keep you going, because then it makes them more likely to want to contribute and keep you going as well. So we can use all these dollars for match, we can use it for leverage, and it really does make a huge difference.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure, and I'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, absolutely. If there are any questions for Dr. Beachy, you're welcome to ask them now. We want to keep this informative and sort of informal. If any arise, feel free to chime in.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that sort of storytelling about the grants. Like, I think it's exciting to look at the raw numbers, but when you hear the impact that this has on our community, so that's what I think has so far and will forever keep me attached to the Women's Giving Circle as a donor. And I think they go on and on. In 2018, Family Promise received an impact grant, and with that money for 3 years are able to house female-led single mom families, 6 families in safe housing. They're able to sort of supplement the rent based on income for 3 years, 6 families. I think that's incredible. PACE received a grant in 2017. That was money to help them finish their Butterfly Center also, which is their multi-purpose room that they use daily with the girls at their school. See, the Santa Fe Rise program received seed money to start their program in 2015. So I think there's immediate impact in helping these nonprofit partners, but we see sort of sustained energy that the money that we put in, it's not sort of gone in a year, that there's impact, lasting impact with the organizations, their ability to help local women and girls, and then with those individual women, those individual girls in our community. So again, thank you, Dr. Beachy.
Yeah, yes. Could I ask Dr. Beachy a question, please?
Certainly,
And that
yeah,
is,
certainly.
did all of the women that received loans pay their loans back?
We have almost 100% repay, yes.
Congratulations.
We stay really close contact with them.
And so that's the partners, the grant partnerships that are formed are really close. So this grant money is going to local nonprofits that have done incredible work in our community. And so the return on this investment, I think, is always huge. So how is the Women's Giving Circle funded? How are we able to make these grants into our community? So there are individual $1,000 donations from donors to the Women's Giving Circle. That threshold requirement is $500 for women who are under the age of 40. And then those monies are pooled together to create a given year's grant cycle. So we don't know at this point in the year exactly how much money we're going to be able to give out in the spring for the 2021 grant cycle, because we're sort of building membership donors at this point. So with that $1,000 donation, completely tax deductible donation to the Women's Giving Circle, $50 is the administrative fee that goes to the community foundation for all of their oversight support. They provide a lot in terms of structure, support, contact with members, organization of, back when we could get together, of learning events, lunch and learns, dinner and dialogues that we'll talk about, a social event each year. So that's all the money that's needed to sort of sustain the circle for the year. $200 is put into an endowment fund that's currently over $160,000. And then from that, we're able to draw out 4% each year to put back into the grant, the total pool of grant money. So then from a $1,000 donation, $750 goes directly in that year back into the community in the form of these grants. So again, the current endowment balance is $169,000. We draw down from that to help supplement and grow our annual grants. And quite obviously, but worth saying, that the more women we have as donors, the more grant money we have, the bigger impact we can make. So who are the women of the Women's Giving Circle? Throughout the years, there have been more than 200 women. We have, I think it's 117 women were part of the last grant cycle. We, as a donor, aside from contributing that money to create the grant pool, there are no requirements. So being a donor doesn't mean you have to serve in any capacity, but the structure of the Women's Giving Circle does include a leadership team. And the women listed here, chaired by Jackie, who you guys got to see at the beginning of this Zoom, work with the Community Foundation to help plan the programming from the year. We work on sort of member outreach, in growing the membership, in setting up the grant process and the calendar for the year. And then the grants committee then takes over and distributes the grant application, reviews those applications, and then stays in very close communication with the Women's Giving Circle donors about their sort of top choices. They vetted all of the applications. They choose typically their top 3. We receive very comprehensive reporting back and explanations of those 3 grants. And then all of the donors in the circle are then able to vote. So this again goes through that cycle in a little more detail, sort of in a graphic form. So now we're sort of in this September through January phase of our calendar year where membership is open. We have programming, we'll talk some more about the things on offer throughout the fall, but the goal is to sustain, hopefully grow the donors of the Women's Giving Circle during this period of time. And then moving from January into February, that's when the grants application review cycle starts. The grants committee is quite busy then. And again, the intent is that this calendar will look more traditional this year, it's our hope. And that they will be reviewing the applications and spending a lot of time, particularly on those impact grant applications during that time period, so that in May, they can make a recommendation of their top 3 choices to all of the donors, and then edit, and the goal is for an in-person event. There's typically on the same day, both a luncheon and a dinner event where donors can choose to come and hear about the grant opportunities and then vote. If you aren't able to attend, you can still vote. It's an electronic vote. Every donor gets, their one vote. And then from those 3, 1 impact grant recipient is chosen. And then June through August, that's when the leadership team is probably the busiest, sort of reflecting on the past year, keeping in touch with previous and current grant recipients, and then planning the calendar and programming for the year ahead. So we've talked about the impact of the Giving Circle in terms of sort of money and grants. For me, the circle is certainly more than that. I think for a lot of our members too. And we talk about this idea of lead, learn, give. And this is a tagline that came out of the 10th anniversary Decades Committee as they were commissioning a beautiful sculpture that is at Celebration Point, and that was titled Lead, Learn, Give. When they reflected on what it meant to be a member, a donor of the Women's Giving Circle, certainly that give piece is critical. That's how we make the impact. But they, as looking around each other and reflecting on the experience, reflecting on sort of how the circle had grown in those 10 years, realized that there's real leadership in this organization, and that there is a constant and continuous desire to learn, to always be learning more, learning about our community, about nonprofits, looking back, learning about sort of how we've done things impact, learning and looking forward about the needs in our community. So they came up with this easy, catchy tagline of lead, learn, give. And since then, in the last, I guess about 2.5 years, the leadership committee has really reflected on this tagline and used it to inform our programming throughout the year, making sure that we're giving opportunity for any members that are, and donors that are interested to grow their leadership, to learn more about our community, and then obviously to give. So opportunities throughout the year that sort of build on this. We have pretty good consonants here. Lunch and learn, dinner and dialogue, coffee and conversation. So different events at different times of the day. We know women's lives are busy. All of us have very different schedules. I have 3 little kids. I'm home with them. And so my life looks really different than a really close friend of mine who I got involved in the circle. She's an ophthalmologist in town. She works like really late clinic days sometimes. And so our availability, we both have a desire to learn more, but our availability is different. So one thing I love is that the circle knows that, and so offers a lot of different opportunities for women who want to get engaged and to learn more. I will say though that something I love about the Giving Circle that's different for me than other nonprofits I've been involved in is people are so delighted whenever they see you. They're excited when you show up, but it's never a requirement. It's never necessary. It's not an essential part of being a donor. So this is more, I would say, value add, all of these opportunities. Additionally, there's traditionally a social in January, won't be happening in person this year. And then that annual grants luncheon, and it's moved to a 2-part where there's a luncheon and sort of an evening opportunity to get together to learn about and vote on the grant. So that's some of the additional programming the circle provides. So upcoming events. Starting just next week on Tuesday, Leslie and the Community Foundation are sort of transforming some of their existing programming and targeting it towards the audience of current Women's Giving Circle members, but everyone's invited. All women are invited. So they're titling it Get on Board, Women in Leadership in Nonprofits. And that is going to be a Zoom presentation this coming Tuesday, the 13th from 11:30 to 1. The second part of that is Women in Leadership in Government, again, hosted by the Community Foundation with their really amazing programming. And then there's going to be for current and new Women's Giving Circle donors, there's going to be a donor appreciation drive-through. We get to sort of wave at each other on November 19th, and then a strategic giving presentation on January 21st. More information and how to RSVP is on the Community Foundation website that we've included here for you. So becoming a donor, if this interests you, sort of this is what you can do next. So there's a 2020 commitment form. It can be mailed to you in a packet, or the entire thing is available online. So the Community Foundation did a really great job with it this year. Has a lot of, I think, very compelling facts on it about the impact of grants, information about the circle, some of the things that we've talked about today. You would make your $1,000, $500 if you're under 40 tax deductible contribution, and that can be done at any time in any increments that are comfortable for you between now and the end of January. So that can be 2020 taxes or 2021 taxes, however that works for you. And then again, think about participating in as much or as little of the programming that's offered. You do not need to be a member to start participating in the programming. You don't even need to plan to join this year. If this is not the right time for you, that's completely fine. And you are still most welcome to join in on the Zoom calls and all of the learning opportunities. There was also, this is new in the last few years, a lifetime legacy membership. If you establish a $25,000 endowed donor advised fund at the Community Foundation, you can use that to generate your $1,000 contribution to the foundation. And then any excess money that could be, or you would like to draw down, you can work with the foundation to advise where that money would go, either additional funds into the circle or elsewhere. So why join? And I think the answers can be different for all of us. So these are some things that we've heard from our members, that they join to increase philanthropy in our community, to connect with women in strategic giving that produces greater impact, to improve the lives of women and girls in our area, to invest in projects that deliver maximum return in relation to the value of the money and the time contributed, to learn more about our community and the nonprofit landscape in North Central Florida. And I would say for me, sort of a combination of those, like why did I join? Why am I staying? Do I plan to stay? I would say it's that sort of community piece, being in community with other women. I've learned a lot, I've gained a lot from the women in the circle. I really appreciate the power of giving to the Women's Giving Circle, that my individual donation then is bundled up with so many other individual donations and makes a real impact in the community. Whereas when I give to other organizations, feel good about it, it's wonderful, but I don't necessarily know or get to see a bigger impact from those dollars. So for me, it's this community of women, this impact, this bigger impact than I could make on my own that I'm able to make. And then the learning piece for me is really valuable. I love learning. I have learned a lot through these events at the circle. And someone's blowing outside my house, the street, so sorry. my dining room office. So we're gonna play here too. You guys get to hear from Dr. Beachy twice because she was featured in a video that was made. So Leslie's gonna play, it's like a 4-minute quick Community Foundation Women's Giving Circle video.
So when I was hired as the first full-time president and CEO of the Community Foundation, one of my first tasks was given was to start a women's giving circle. The female members of our board of directors have come together and created a list of all of their friends to invite to lunch to pitch this idea. So we launched in the fall of 2006 with the hope of getting at least 50 women to participate. Lo and behold, we had over 80, and we ended up giving out our first grants in May of 2007. Fast forward to 2019, 13 years later, we have had over 200 women to participate off and on, and some for all 13 years with our Women's Giving Circle. This year, we've had the most women to ever participate at 110 women participating in our grant cycle for 2019.
So the fundamental concept behind a Women's Giving Circle is that we pool our resources, that I put my small gift in, and you put your small gift in, and others put their smaller gifts in, and together we have a compounded large amount of money that we can then allocate out, either in a single grant or in multiple grants. Pooled giving gives us power, gives us impact, and gives us the ability to make a difference.
In our 13-year history, our Women's Giving Circle has supported nearly 30 different organizations here in Alachua County, from Girl Scouts to Girls Place to Displaced Homemakers to SWAG, Peaceful Paths, and the Back to Work 50 Plus program. We have benefited a wide variety of organizations that help women and girls in our community.
Some of the grants that the Women's Giving Circle have been to well-established organizations, and we've helped them move on their already identified path. And some of the grants have gone to relatively new organizations to give them the leg up so they can do what they want to do. And in the gift, we bring attention to that organization.
The Women's Giving Circle is really unique for a couple of reasons. For us, one of the things that we tell survivors all the time is you're not in this alone. And so when we can tell them that we're getting funding from a group of women in our community who are committed to making the community better, $1,000 at a time, it really makes a difference for them to know that there are people out there that they'll never meet, or that they may see in a magazine, or that they may read about in a newspaper or hear about on television, who are so invested in their community that they're willing to invest dollars into really strangers whose lives they know they can make better.
One of the things that we're really excited about is with our 13-year history, a number of our supporters now are choosing to leave a legacy and creating a planned gift, which is simply they're remembering the Women's Giving Circle in their will and their estate plans. So we're starting to see more planned gifts come in, and this will forever support our work with the Women's Giving Circle.
It's not difficult. It's not difficult. And I think a lot of people don't consider that as they're looking to planning where their money goes. I mean, you may think some national organization or dividing it up among your loved ones. But when you think how you can really make an impact among people in your community who need it in such a fundamental way, that you can make the difference in a girl's life, in a woman's life, in a family's life. It's a privilege, as I said, it really is, and it's not difficult to do. I'm thrilled to be able to do it.
Honestly, Women's Giving Circle is one of those organizations that I believe people don't know the impact that they've made. I'm sure you walk into offices, you walk into establishments, you walk into places of work, and you have no idea that you are interacting with somebody that you've already invested in. So your investment continues.
So that's a video that the Community Foundation put together with Women's Giving Circle a couple years ago, and is available on the Women's Giving Circle website. If you want to review it again or send it to a friend, it sort of encapsulates sort of the why of the circle, the impact that we can make. Do you mind sharing the slides one more time, Leslie? I think I had one more. Awesome, thank you. So we just had some next steps. So if this has piqued your interest at all, you can explore the Community Foundation website. The Women's Giving Circle website is nested within that. If you would like to receive a mail donor packet, You can either email the office, or if you put your name and address in the comments here in the Zoom, we'll collect those all at the end of this Zoom here this morning. If you have questions and would like to chat more, you're most welcome to reach out to me directly. Sort of just as a donor of the Circle, I can speak to you about my experience, the impact that I've seen the Circle make. You can also certainly reach out to the Community Foundation through their email address or phone number. If you would like to participate in more trainings, the RSVP again is at the Community Foundation's website, cfncf.org/events. It lists all of the upcoming events, including those of the Women's Giving Circle that were listed on a previous slide. The first one